What does reading do for business leaders and wealthy people that can also be a benefit to all of us? Well, it helps discover new ways of thinking and organizing ideas. It helps gain more knowledge and supplies vast information. It will help increase focus and be more productive. And it can help be more reflective of society as a whole. Let's do this, people. There's nothing but goodness that comes from reading more. Not only can it be a renewed source of enjoyment, but it may help you discover new options, ideas, and actions for improving your career and your life. Hello again. Welcome to The Ruthless Truth. I am your host, Truth Davis. In this forum, I share opinions, thoughts, truths on a wide variety of topics based on what I believe to be a unique life experience. And you can read more about that in the notes or in the bio. My intent is to share stories and hopefully provide some life and career lessons that'll help you on your journey. Please follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5 and subscribe to the YouTube channel Ruthless Truth. General format, I'll share some initial commentary on current news or just some thoughts. Then I'll have a deeper discussion on one topic, which will be today's truth. And then I'd like to finish with an American history fun fact. Okay, so last weekend was Halloween. How'd you spend it? What'd you do? Did you go to a costume party or take the kids trick-or-treating? Well, I know what you didn't do. You didn't go to the movies because last weekend was the worst box office weekend of the year, and the month of October was the worst October since 1997. Now, the studios will say they were hurt because Halloween fell on a Friday, so people were trick-or-treating instead of going to the movies. And then they also point out it was a World Series weekend where Game 7 was the most watched baseball game in the last 10 years. Yeah, right. That could be it. Or maybe, just maybe, it was because there weren't that many good movies to go see. I mean, the Taylor Swift movie was a surprise, and it was a surprise release, and it was a bright spot. But the bombs included Tron and also The Smashing Machine, and almost no one went to see Jennifer Lopez's version of Kiss of the Spider Woman. That movie has done a total of 1.6 million in sales. And finally, where were all the scary movies? I mean, usually there's a number of new horror films released every October. Not this year. Oh well. I'm sure things are going to improve soon as we approach the holiday season because Wicked for Good will be a can't-miss box office blockbuster. Another interesting development in the business world, it looks like the coffee wars are heating up. You know, coffee shops and retailers are an interesting market. While there are thousands of coffee shops nationwide with loyal bases, the overall coffee retail industry is still dominated by Starbucks and Dunkin' placing a distant second place. These two companies together control 85% of the U.S. coffee market. But there is a challenger on the horizon. Dutch Brothers Coffee, based in Seattle, is the third largest coffee retailer and currently growing rapidly, at a time when Starbucks has experienced 7 consecutive quarters of declining sales. So what has been the key to their success? Well, Dutch Brothers has tapped into Gen Z taste. Much more so than food, coffee preferences diverge greatly by generation, says Logan Reich, an analyst at RBC Capital Markets. It's like everybody likes a chicken sandwich. But while older consumers still drink hot black coffee, younger ones gravitate toward colorful energy drinks and iced concoctions that look perfect drizzled with caramel on TikTok. Gen Z is especially drawn to iced and customizable drinks. 94% of their orders are cold, and another third are energy based, which is the core of the Dutch Brothers menu. In just 3 years, Dutch Brothers have nearly tripled their revenue from $498 million in 2021 to $1.3 billion in 2024. Now, if you live in the East or the Midwest, you may not have heard of Dutch Brothers yet. But the company has aggressive expansion plans and projects to have over 2,000 locations before the end of this decade. So while Starbucks remains on top, its dominance is quickly waning. Just again shows it's tough to stay on top, especially when your growth leads to potentially declining service. Okay, before I get to today's truth, I need to comment on a couple national items of huge interest. First, as of this recording, the federal government shutdown has now reached historic levels, having set the record for the longest shutdown in U.S. history. It's absolutely unbelievable, and it's aggravating, and it's frustrating because all of us are suffering because 535 adults, that's the 435 members of Congress plus 100 senators, can't get into a room and figure out a solution. I truly don't understand how they think they are serving the citizens. You know the effects. Federal workers are not receiving paychecks, even though many are still expected to show up for work. Air travel is slowing as some TSA workers need to work other jobs in order to pay bills. And while SNAP benefits aren't cut completely, they are experiencing significant decreases. You know, the worst part is this feeling of helplessness. There seems to be nothing we can do to make these legislators reach a compromise. And they know that. They aren't feeling any pain. And they're hoping we'll just get over it. Well, let's give them pain now and later. For now, call, email your representative and express your outrage. Attend town meetings if they're courageous enough to hold one, and make your voice heard. Then, next year, in the midterms, stick it to them at the ballot box. Also, I'm weary of seeing and hearing these stupid debates and arguments where one side accuses the other side of socialism or Marxism when less than 10% of adults can actually define the terms. Well, let me help you out. Socialism. Socialism is where the community or the state owns the means of production instead of private individuals or corporations. It eliminates inequality by spreading wealth and resources equitably among all members of the community. No more haves and have-nots. Marxism believes the working class should be the ruling class, resulting in a classless society where there's no social class conflict and no government. And finally, communism believes in a classless society where the state has ownership of production and resources. There's no private property, there's no currency, and the resources are distributed by need, as determined by the dictator or the ruling party. Now, hopefully, this will help you as you enter nonsensical debates with ignorant people. Okay, let's get to today's truth. Today's truth. Okay, let me ask you a question. Have you read any good books lately? No? Well, you're not alone. Because as a nation, we don't read much. At least we don't read books. Only 16% of Americans age 15 or older read for leisure every day. And according to a recent YouGov poll, 46% of Americans did not read or listen to a book in the past 12 months. The average number of books read in a year is about 12, although that number is skewed by avid readers. I should know because I'm married to one. My wife reads 2 to 3 books a week. So the median number of books read per adult is about 4 per year. So in today's truth, I want to discuss the decline of leisure reading and what we can do to increase the joy of reading, especially with our children. First of all, most Americans do think reading is a good thing, as a useful way to learn about the world and as a form of relaxation. And a whopping 98% of parents hope their children will become avid readers and, quote, develop a love of reading. But the reality is we're just not reading very much. And it's actually a two-pronged problem. Fewer adults are reading for pleasure, and as a result, parents aren't reading to their children. Let's first talk about the trends regarding children, and then I'll get to the issues with adult reading in a few minutes. Okay, this statistic shocked me. Less than half of parents find it fun to read to their children. This is based on a December 2024 survey conducted by Nielsen and book publisher HarperCollins. And the survey revealed there's a steep decline in the number of parents reading aloud to young children, with 41% of 0 to 4-year-olds now being read too frequently is down from 64% in 2012 to 40%. Now, to me, when you get deeper into the data, it gets even worse. For the parents that do read to their children, they see it more as teaching them a skill rather than viewing reading as enjoyment. Now, there's a generational skew to this trend. Gen Z parents are more likely than millennial or Gen X parents to say that children's reading is, quote, more a subject to learn than a fun thing to do. Okay? Now, HarperCollins said it's because parents in this age group, they grew up with technology themselves, so they may think fun comes more from digital entertainment than from books. But reading to your children is important. It improves cognitive development and language skills. It fosters imagination and critical thinking. It strengthens the parent-child bond. And it exposes children to new vocabulary and complex sentence structures, which helps build a strong foundation for academic success and a lifelong love of reading. Reading also promotes emotional intelligence, concentration, and empathy as children navigate stories with different characters and situations. You know, I often hear low and middle income parents complain that rich kids have all the advantages in education and life. They say it's tougher to compete because they can't afford the tutors or the tuition for private school. Well, one low cost advantage available to all these parents is encouraging their children to read. And you know the best way to encourage them? It's for them to see you reading. As I mentioned, my wife reads 2 to 3 books a week. While we have mostly converted to digital books, we still have thousands of books in our home. I vividly remember my oldest son, and I guess he was 4 or 5 years old, and he was nearly in tears because he couldn't read. He regularly saw his parents reading, and we read to him every night. And I remember consoling him and telling him, just be patient. I promise you're going to learn to read. All parents have the opportunity to model and instill the joy of reading with their children. Believe me, it will serve them well throughout their school years and beyond. And the great thing, it's not that expensive. When I was a kid, my parents took me to the library every week to get a new set of books. Now, I realize the libraries are not as prevalent today, but ebooks and e-readers are widely available and reasonably priced. There's no excuse for not exposing your child to the joy of reading. Now, as for the parents who mostly view reading as a skill more than a source of enjoyment, well, there's no denying that it is a crucial skill. And the most important year is 3rd grade. Why? Because 3rd grade is when students transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And if a child is not reading at grade level by 3rd grade, a difficult road awaits them. They are likely to struggle in every subject going forward and fall further behind their peers. There's such a large base of evidence on this topic that school officials can accurately forecast high school dropout rates simply based on third grade reading levels. So how can we instill this joy of reading in our children? Well, again, it starts with the parents. Your children watch everything you do. You are the model for their behavior and interest. If you demonstrate an interest in reading, they will too. And by no means am I advocating having books replace video games and digital media. Just add books to the mix. You know, when my kids were young, they were the only grandkids for my parents and also for my wife's parents. So they were spoiled with gifts. They had every video game player on the market. Hell, they even had a Dreamcast, which almost no one bought. But we would still take them to the library and the bookstore. They received books as Christmas gifts. So it just became part of their lifestyle. And while all kids should engage in reading books, it's especially important for Black households. Black children consistently lag behind their peers in reading levels. So to summarize, my message to parents: first, please recognize and embrace the importance of reading to your young children. Try to view and model reading as a source of entertainment rather than a skill or a chore. For your older children, give them books as a gift or a reward. Engage with them and discuss the books they're reading. I think you'll find it's a great bonding experience for all of you. Okay, now to the adults in the room. When's the last time you finished a book? Have you lost your joy of reading? Well, let's talk about rediscovering that joy and also how it can benefit your life and your career. First, let's level set on the current situation. As mentioned, U.S. adults are reading fewer books per person, and a lower percentage of the population reads consistently. Here's some of the numbers. The percentage of adults who read at least one book in the past 12 months has fallen, with some data showing it dropped from about 55% in 2012 to just over 48% in 2022. Also, daily pleasure reading has declined, dropping by about 40% between 2003 and 2023. The other trends are probably not that surprising. Women read more than men, older people read more than younger people, white people read more than Black people. So, many segments are seeing significant decreases in reading. But do you know which segment still reads at a frequent level? Rich people. Wealthy and successful people are known to read books frequently, often for self-improvement, career growth, and acquiring knowledge rather than just for entertainment. For example, Bill Gates reads about 50 books a year, and Warren Buffett is a daily reader, sometimes reading 5 to 6 hours a day. Other avid readers include Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Mark Cuban, and Elon Musk, who says he learned how to build rockets from reading books. A recent study was conducted comparing the reading habits of rich people, which is defined by having net assets of at least $3 million, to people with less means. And the study revealed that 88% of the wealthy respondents read at least 30 minutes per day, as compared to only 2% of the non-wealthy respondents. As stated, this reading is not just for entertainment. They say the reading is often a source of new ideas and strategies to improve their businesses. Reading also helps them learn about other people and cultures and experiences, which helps them build frameworks for success. And what types of books do they read? Well, mostly nonfiction. They often read history books or biographies to learn about other leaders and how they achieved success. Rich people also read self-improvement books because they're always looking for ways to get better. And finally, rich people are disciplined and methodical about reading. They schedule reading time into their day. It's not just an interest. Reading is a lifestyle and a habit. So, what does reading do for business leaders and wealthy people that can also be a benefit to all of us? Well, it helps discover new ways of thinking and organizing ideas. It helps gain more knowledge and supplies vast information. It'll help increase focus and be more productive. And it can help be more reflective of society as a whole. Let's do this, people. There's nothing but goodness that comes from reading more. Not only can it be a renewed source of enjoyment, but it may help you discover new options, ideas, and actions for improving your career and your life. Okay, let's get to today's American history fun fact. Today's American history fun fact. I want to tell you about the fascinating life and career of Hedy Lamarr, one of the most beautiful and glamorous Hollywood stars ever. But what is not as well known is her accomplishments outside of motion pictures. So Hedy Lamarr was born Hedwig Eva Maria Kiesler on November 9, 1914 in Vienna, Austria. She was the only child to Jewish parents. However, her mother later converted to Catholicism and raised her daughter as Christian. At age 12, Hedwig won a beauty contest in Vienna, but also at that time displayed an interest in technology. So her father encouraged this interest, and he would take her on walks explaining how various devices worked. In 1933, at age 18, she starred in the film Ecstasy, where she played a neglected young wife married to an older man. The film became both celebrated and notorious for showing Lamarr's face in the throes of orgasm, as well as close-up and brief scenes of nudity. Now, Hedy claims she was duped by the director who used high-power telephoto lens, although he disputes her claims. Either way, the film proved to be controversial. In Europe, it was regarded as a work of art, while in the United States, the movie was seen as overly sexual, especially by women's groups, and it was ultimately banned. Regardless, the film put Lamarr on the map, and she gained a large audience of admirers. Well, one of her biggest fans was Friedrich Mandel, who at the time was regarded as the third richest man in Austria. He intensely pursued her, and then at age 18, over the objections of her parents, Hedy married the 33-year-old Mandel in 1933. Now, Mandel had close ties to Italian fascist Benito Mussolini and later to Adolf Hitler. He disapproved of Hedy's performance in Ecstasy, and he forbade her from acting. So Lamarr accompanied Mandel to business meetings where he conferred with scientists and other professionals involved in military technology. These conferences were her introduction to the field of applied science and nurtured her latent talent in science. Well, the marriage became unbearable for Hedy, and in 1937, she left her husband and her country and fled to London. While there, she met Louis B. Mayer, who was scouting for talent. He was intrigued by Hedwig and persuaded her to change her name to Hedy Lamarr so as to distance herself from the movie Ecstasy. Mayer brought her to Hollywood and promoted her as the world's most beautiful woman. And according to one viewer, when her face first appeared on the screen, everyone gasped. Lamarr's beauty literally took one's breath away. So from the late 1930s to the mid-1940s, Hedy appeared in many films, usually playing the glamorous seductress of exotic origin. But she grew weary of her roles, and she took up inventing just to relieve her boredom. She wanted to join the National Inventors Council, but was reportedly told by the NIC that she could better help the war effort by using her celebrity to sell war bonds. In other words, just be pretty and smile. Well, by far, her greatest role was as Delilah in the film Samson and Delilah, which was released in December 1949. The movie received rave reviews, and not only was it the top grossing film of 1950, but at the time it was the third highest grossing film ever. Now, I can attest the movie is highly entertaining and one of my personal all time favorites. As mentioned, despite no formal training, Hedy Lamarr spent much of her spare time working on designs and inventions, including an improved traffic stoplight and a tablet that would dissolve in water to create a flavored carbonated drink. Now, back during the late 1930s, Lamarr attended arms deals with her then husband, arms dealer Fritz Mandel, possibly to improve his chances of making a sale. Well, from the meeting, she learned that navies needed a way to guide a torpedo as it raced through the water. Well, also during this time, Lamarr befriended composer and pianist George Antheil. He had been working on how to synchronize player pianos, and together they realized that radio frequencies could be changed similarly using the same type of mechanism, but miniaturized. So in 1942, the Lamarr-Antheil patent was granted. Their technology was intended to provide secure, jam-resistant communication for weapon guidance by spreading the signal across multiple frequencies, a method now recognized as the foundation of spread spectrum technology. However, the Navy initially rejected the technology, and they didn't start using it operationally until 1962, which was 3 years after the patent had expired. Still, Hedy Lamarr is credited with developing the underlying technology that later led to the development of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Well, after the 1960s, Lamarr mostly lived in seclusion in Florida, distanced from family and friends, until her death in 2000 at age 85. Now, in 2014, she was posthumously inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame for her frequency hopping spread spectrum technology. Hedy Lamarr was the epitome of brains and beauty in one package. Okay, that's all I have for you today on the Ruthless Truth. Thank you so much for listening. Again, you can follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5 or subscribe to the YouTube channel Ruthless Truth. And there's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. Thanks again, and I will talk to you soon.